Welcome to our candidate school. You're all going back to school to learn how to be a board member. My name is Denise Bell, and I'm the Regional Education Officer from the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development. And in my role, I'm the Minister's Designate between the Department of Education and both the Halifax Regional Board and the Chignecto Central Regional Board. So in that capacity, I'm here this evening. I've got two other people here who can help me out this evening. Trish Smith is the Communications Manager for Nova Scotia School Boards Association, and she's going to do a presentation when I'm finished. And Dwayne Provo, who's the African Nova Scotian Provincial Regional Education Officer, and he's here this evening as well to answer questions. So welcome. We don't have a clicker, so Trish is going to be my clicker tonight. For school board elections, the election of a school board member is governed by the Education Act and Municipal Elections Act. And so I just want to start here with my notes. School board elections occur every 4 years, and they occur at the same time municipal elections are taking part. This year, the election is going to be on October the 15th, 2016, along with the municipal elections. The Utility and Review Board sets the electoral districts for school board elections, and currently 6 school boards are awaiting the UARB process. So many times, if school boards are applying to have either more school board members, less school board members, or they want to match their school board electoral districts with the municipal districts, they would make application to the Utility and Review Board. So right now, all school boards are waiting decisions for the fall. Some have heard and some have not. So in terms of school board member categories, there are 4 categories. If you are going to be running for a general school board member, you would be the member of the regional school board. You can run as the African Nova Scotian member of a school board, but you must be an African Nova Scotian to run for that position. If you are running for the Conseil Scolaire Acadien Provincial or the CSAP, the French board, you must be an entitled person, and we'll get to that a little while later. And then the Mi'kmaq representative for a school board is actually appointed with consultation with the chiefs. That's appointed by the Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development. In terms of qualifications, in order to run for school board, including African Nova Scotian members of a regional school board and the CSAP, you must be 18 years of age at the time of nomination. You must be a Canadian citizen. You must be a resident in the school region in which you are seeking office for 6 months prior to the nomination day, and you must continue to reside, and you have not been disqualified under the Municipal Elections Act. The jurisdiction for CSAP, by the way, is the entire province. You do not need to reside in the electoral district in which you're going to be running, so sometimes that's important for people, as long as you meet the 6-month requirement. In addition to the standard qualifications, there are specific eligibility criteria for African Nova Scotian members of the Regional School Board and the CSAP. Candidates for election as the African Nova Scotian member must be African Nova Scotian and qualified to be a candidate for election for school board. Similarly, candidates for CSAP must be an entitled person as defined in the Education Act, and that includes one whose first language learned and still understood is French. The business of CSAP is conducted completely in French. And one who has received Canadian primary school instruction in a French first language program, or one who is the parent of a child who is receiving or has received Canadian primary or secondary school instruction in French first language. Something else here in my notes, it says here that only an African Nova Scotian elector may nominate a candidate for election as the African Nova Scotian member of a school board. Persons not qualified to run would be an employee of the school board, a sitting MLA, MP, senator, municipal councilor, or a judge, a member of another school board, an individual has been convicted of any corrupt practice or bribery contrary to the Municipal Elections Act within the 10 years preceding the nomination day. Filing nominations. So a candidate can be nominated for one office only in writing by at least 5 qualified voters. A nomination fee of $2,000 maximum is required unless reduced or eliminated by the local municipality. Nomination papers must be filed with the returning officer for the district in which you're running. And in terms of the deposit of $200, at the end there are certain criteria. You can have that refunded if you meet the criteria, and they're outlined in your guide. Stipends. You won't get rich as a school board member. The current stipend for members is $10,500 per year, and $17,300 for the chair, and $12,800 for the vice chair. These are the stipends for the last 2-year term. These are currently under review, so by the time the next election takes place in the fall, there will be the review of these stipends will have taken place, and then there's possibility that these stipends will be increased. Board chairs and vice chairs are elected by sitting members at their first meeting after the election. So the election occurs with the other board members, and they're choosing their chair and their vice chair. So just to give you an idea, I don't need to read all these, but it gives you an idea of where the boards are in terms of how many schools that board members that come under the jurisdiction of that particular board, what the enrollment was in 2015 September, this current year, how many board members, and also the budget for the 15-16 year. So if you're here in Halifax, we'll just look at that one. If that's the one you're looking to run for, you have 135 schools in this board, almost 48,000 students, 10 school board members with a budget of $442 million. Sounds like you have a lot of money. School board accountability. A school board is accountable to the Minister of Education and is responsible for the control and the management of public schools within its jurisdiction accordance with the Education Act and its regulations. So that comes directly from the Education Act. So here's the part, I think, when most people are looking to run as a school board member, looking at what their role is. And I think that many people are interested in certain aspects. They get interested in thinking this is something that I would be good at, or I'm interested in education or my children's education. I want to have a role in shaping that. And there's a lot more to being a school board member, and I think it's a very interesting role. And I think when you get into the role and you see the breadth of it, you see there's a number of things that you have a role in shaping on behalf of the students in the jurisdiction. First of all, a major role is developing policies. You work with staff, but you have input into the policy development and, of course, passing of those policies and things that can be added or amended. You're also involved with your communities. Communities are also consulted on policies, so you have a way to influence the direction of the school board in that way. You oversee and approve the annual budget. So that's a major thing that school board members work towards during almost half of the year. The budget is awarded, but even by the time the next school year starts, they're starting into talking about budget priorities, the strategic plan, your vision, and then it's a long process to actually get to the point where you settle on the budget, and then when you actually get the amount of money you've been awarded as a board, trying to decide among those priorities, what are the priorities that you're going to approve to go forward to address the student achievement issues within the board. You develop a strategic plan for the board, and I know that in this board it was a 4-year plan, and I assume that again that will be revisited as a new plan when a new board is formed in the fall, when new board members are chosen or the former board members are chosen. There's a large role in monitoring student achievement, and that would come in the form of staff here providing you with reports on what's happening in the board under different aspects of student achievement, how the students are doing, what the deficiencies are, what kind of resources are needed, how do we shape our budget to match what we need to drive student achievement. So it's a major piece of the role. If anybody had just paid attention to the latest Auditor General's report that came out in the fall, this was a major part of his report, that school board members need to take that major role in monitoring student achievement. You approve an annual business plan for the board, and you monitor school improvement plans and annual reports submitted by school advisory councils. The school improvement planning, that concept is provincial-wide. The new name for it, because it's gone through many different names in the board and in the province, the new name for school improvement planning is going to be called student success planning. And so the schools within your district will be all developing student success plans, and you will have a role in seeing how those plans play out. Examples of board decisions. If during your term there's a new superintendent coming on board, you will be involved in the hiring of that superintendent, and you will also be involved in the evaluation of the current superintendent. You are involved because of the costs in approving requests for major construction or major repairs. A big thing that I think many times prospective board members don't realize is that you will be involved in hearing teacher and student appeals. So if there are teacher discipline hearings, the board has a major role in that in terms of making the decision to agree or disagree, or vary, or whatever the recommendation of staff. And student appeals, this would be around the whole issue of student suspensions. If parents wish to appeal a student suspension hearing, board members have a committee and they are involved in that. Staffing requirements would be another thing that you would have input into. The school review process, a major role for all school board members when schools are up for possible closure, attending meetings, listening to constituents, evaluating all of the data and the information you're given by staff. And so all of those are a major part of your role. And again, coming back to policies, you will be the final say in approving the policies that go forward. Every school board member shall maintain a focus on the achievement of all students enrolled in the school board's schools and programs. School board members have to respect that the superintendent is responsible for the day-to-day management of the school board. And I think that's something that is difficult a lot of times when people or your constituents, once you become a school board member, expect that in your role you can influence the day-to-day management of schools, your local school or the school board. And in this role, the superintendent is the person who is looking after that day-to-day management. And you have to act in the best interest of the school board and carry out your responsibilities in a manner that assists the school board in fulfilling its duties pursuant to the Education Act. So in that, it's important that you participate in the school board decisions, and when it comes time that the final decision is made, it's important that all school board members support the decision that was made by the board. Individual school board members do not act alone. saying that individual school board members do not have the authority to make decisions or take action on behalf of the board. So even if somebody brings you a request or brings you information, if it's with respect to the day-to-day management of the school board, you're turning that over to staff. But if it's somebody who is bringing you ideas or asking you questions that feels that in your role as a board member, you can influence the outcome, those are things that you would present to the whole board, and the whole board would make decisions. And again, you have a duty to uphold the implementation of a board decision after it's been passed, even if it disagrees with your point of view. Parent concerns. Board members do not have a direct role in resolving or dealing with parent concerns or issues. And I know this is, well, it can go two ways. It's hard if you have a lot of pressure from constituents that they want a bus stop in a certain place, or they want something changed in their school, or they don't like their principal. Lots of times people think these are things that school board member can overturn, and that's not the role of the school board member. So in one respect, you have that pressure, but hopefully you will understand it's great when you have the ability to turn that over to somebody who can resolve that concern, and it's their job to do it and not to fall to you. Each board has what they call a parent concern protocol. So if parents do have concerns, whether it's, like I said, where the school bus stop is or whatever it would be, each board has a protocol where the parent can essentially start with the school and then work up from the school to the supervisor and so on. It's not an issue that should reside with the school board member, him or herself. Accountabilities, starting from the bottom up, the School Advisory Council of Parents is formed in a role to advise and support the principal. The principal supports or is reporting to the superintendent. The superintendent reports to the elected or governing board, and of course the board, as we said earlier, is accountable to the Minister of Education. The superintendent implements policies and regulations established by the board and oversees the entire school system. The superintendent also provides the board with advice during deliberations, because many times there are factors that are going on in the school system that the superintendent is aware of and can provide that advice to help the board in making their decision. The famous line that everybody uses, and it's so true, it's often said the board has one employee, and that is true. It is the superintendent. And so the elected or governing board is funneling all of their issues through the superintendent, then to be assigned to the appropriate staff member to handle. So without specific authorization, no other school staff member should report directly to the board. So it's always that if the school board member is trying to work through something in the system, the school board member is going back through the superintendent as the chief executive officer. So just elaborating on that, it would not be a situation where a school board member would be going in and telling the principal what to do or advising the principal about a situation. It would be working through that protocol. For school board members, there's a code of ethics, respect, confidentiality, impartiality, and objectivity. There's a large section of the school board's members' role that would be making decisions or assisting making decisions, particularly in camera or private sessions under certain topics like contracts or personnel matters. I mentioned earlier teacher suspension hearings and so on. That's all confidential information that should not be shared outside of the room. Boards are governed by that code of conduct, and they're expected to obey the bylaws, that each board sets their own bylaws. And to maintain that confidentiality, And some examples would be, I mentioned personnel, another would be legal advice and individual student information. If there is a breach of the code of ethics, there are 4 possible consequences for that, and it comes under the Education Act. The first one is censure, and it says in the Education Act, where a school board member determines the member has not complied with the school board's code of ethics, the board may censure a member of the school board by issuing a public reprimand, by revoking the member's right to sit as a member for 1 to 3 months, that would be suspension. And finally, if the board feels it's grave enough, can ask for the minister to vacate the seat of the board member. The powers of the minister over the board is the minister can authorize an independent financial audit if there are any concerns around the finances of the board. The minister can authorize an investigation of all aspects of the board's operation, and if the minister feels that the issues of the board are grave enough, the minister can disband and appoint a new board. Board meetings are public. Boards around the province normally meet once a month. There are also regular committee meetings that board members are expected to attend, and the number of committees and the types of committees are decided individually by boards. And then the other issue is board meetings, the attendance is mandatory. So if a board member misses 3 consecutive meetings without a valid reason, the seat can be vacated. So it's very important when you take on a 4-year commitment to being a board member that you are available and able to attend the meetings, because when people are absent, it's not only that you're not there to help the board make the decisions, but then in later times when these decisions come back or there's discussions around them, you don't have the whole, the complete picture to assist in making the decisions that you need to make.